Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, the topic for today is the future of retail, and specifically as it relates to food. There are three messages I want to give today, and let's just take them one by one. The first question I want to address is the food consumption living up to its promise? And what I mean by that is, as you can see, there's a donkey and there's a unicorn. And of course, everybody only talks about the unicorns. The question is, and many company CEOs ask me, why isn't our sales increasing at least at the growth rate of GDP? What is the issue? If the GDP is growing 6.5%, at least the industry average should be 6.5%. May not be company one or company two, but the industry average. But I think by and large across food, that is not the case. So what is really happening? So that's question number one, which we will answer. We should also see if there's anybody winning this battle for food and retail, who is winning? Is it the large multinational companies or is it the regional companies? And then who are they selling to? And finally, what are the implications for food manufacturers and retailers? So let me go through a couple of messages quickly, and I'll stop at some of the perhaps more non-intuitive ones. First is, whichever way you look at it, I think India is growing. So if you ask an answer to Etikani, if you ask me, is India growing? Are those numbers of 6.5% correct? Answer is absolutely, it is correct. So the question is, where are those numbers going? The short answer, which I will explain in a couple of pages, is those numbers are going to smaller companies, they're going to smaller regional companies and smaller unorganized companies. They're not going to the big companies which are listed on the stock exchange, which are the large national companies. And India is going through a very unique phase where actually the share of the national companies has been coming down over the last decade. This is very, very similar to what happened in China. But we believe this will change in the next 5 to 7 years. The big companies will come back. And this is happening because of local demand. Local entrepreneurs have done a better job. And local demand is rising. And there are a couple of drivers why it will change. We'll come to that, but just hold on for that. So this is the reason. What we measure is not where the change is happening. The change is happening under the belly. It's happening under the skin. Let me give you a couple of examples to bring that to life. What happened when India liberalized in the early 2000s is everybody said, India shining and all that good stuff. It was because the change was visible. Malls came up, new brands came in, and so on and so forth. But that was still in those big companies above the skin, as we call it, what is visible. If you look at the move from unpackaged food to packaged food, some form of value addition is happening at the local kirana, at the local stores, but that is not measured in some listed company or in some GDP necessarily. It might even be lost in the GDP calculations. But the rate of transition from unpackaged to packaged food is phenomenal. Across categories, it can be 15%, 20% and even higher, which the big packaged food companies are not seeing. Things like milks, proteins, if you see the basic consumption, you can track Amul and Mother Dairy and a couple of other large dairy companies, including with Devendra sitting here, etc. But milk and protein consumption is increasing. Only 5% of meat proteins is organized. So you don't see the remaining 95% where people are having more chicken and meat. Eating out. How many of these restaurants really declared the data? But it is going up. If you see the NRAI survey, it's going up, etc., etc. Look at even the services upgradation part. I just wanted to give a real life example. You go to a local salon. You used to have a haircut for 50 rupees 10 years back. Today that is 500 rupees. The place is air-conditioned. People wear a uniform. So where is that value addition getting captured? That is not getting captured. So if you look at real consumption, we come back to the point, it is growing at 6.5% and in many sectors higher. Now let's look at where will demand eventually be homogenized? Because if there are so many different areas where demand is growing, as business people sitting here, it's difficult for you all to invest, right? There are two bets you need to make on this country. So I'm coming now to the second point. The first bet is on the youth. There's nothing very new about that. But youth, other than the fact that they consume more, the bigger point is they create a homogenization of demand. The reason you saw regional companies doing well is because they are more 35-year-old and above as per what the research shows, the people who are buying it. But youth creates homogenization, whether it's denim in apparel, whether it's fast food in food services, whether it's entertainment options, and so on and so forth. I know these are huge generalizations, but I've given you just 2 sample categories of snacks and bottled beverage. A typical sweet spot for youth. And you will see that the highest growing and the maximum consumption categories are being driven by the youth. And this is happening, I can prove this to you for most of the categories where youth are involved. So youth is the subject. But still sales are not happening. Why? Because the youth in this country who have money in their pockets are very, very few. So the question is, when will the youth in this country have money? The answer is after 6 to 7 years, they will be a sizable bunch. I don't want to bore you with this chart. So there are youth. So either they're studying and they're using all your parents' money, your money, my money. But in 5 to 7 years, almost 35% of the population will be earning who are born after 1990. And that is a generation, forget jargons, which actually makes a difference because their value systems and what they buy and how they've been exposed culturally are very, very different. So the second point was on youth. First point is consumption is there. It is actually there. It's under the skin. Second is youth is important and it's from a homogenization. The third point is about income. So what is so great about income? The point about income is we obsess about income, but the real question to ask is about distribution. The problem with India is the middle class, and we do not have a middle class. Frankly, to me, it doesn't matter what our GDP grows by. We will not suffer as a country whether we grow at 5.5, 6.5, 7.5, 8.5. If the money is going to be concentrated in the hands of rich people, promoters, owners, shareholders, whatever you can call them, it doesn't help the country. Let me give you a simple example. This is an example of a toothpaste. Why isn't toothpaste sales in the country increasing? Not because you and I need to brush 3 times a day or 4 times a day. It is because of penetration. Category after category, there's no point preaching to people to, like you and me, what needs to be done. The issue in this country is penetration. Penetration will happen when the middle class have money. Awareness will come when they have money, and the desire to have awareness will have when they have money. So what this chart is saying is, again, in that 6 to 7 year time frame, there's going to be a sweet spot when people will have more money. It'll at least be 3 times the number of people who will have money, and money I'm defining very, very loosely as earning more than 6 lakh rupees an annum. You can argue it's lot or not lot. And that's where the confluence of youth and money will come together. And we actually believe that the food industry will see a couple of percentage points more growth, right? So now the question is, what should food companies do in the middle? In the middle, I think there are these 4 or 5 trends which need to be taken cognizance of, and money can be made. So there are new consumption occasions. Let me just go through these quickly. A lot of research shows people really don't have a lot to eat between breakfast and lunch. In the evening, about between 4 to 5, and post-dinner. These are gaps. These can be fulfilled in the middle by a variety of companies. Packaged food will be on the rise, and try and make your value proposition in packaged food, and there is some bit here which also says around traditional food, more attractive. People are willing to pay a premium for the right kind of health benefits, for the right kind of quality benefits and safety benefits. So focus on that and make some money. So basically your choices center around twofold, as I can see. Right now, if you want to do well, you'll have to focus on the premium segment, which is largely urban and premium, and therefore richer people, if you can call them rich, in the non-urban space. But to win their share, innovation is required. Just the next chocolate and just the next rice and just the next oatmeal isn't really going to help. Or if you want size, if you want to be a multi-billion-dollar company, you have to go to the masses. And to go to the masses, our belief is your price point has to at least become half. So what scale, volume, and taxation benefits you require? I mean, the companies of the future in India will have to serve these 200, 300 million people who are really entering the consuming classes. And at least we don't believe the current retail formats or food formats particularly caters to them. So either there has to be greater organization of the unorganized sector today, which might happen through GST and other digital compliances in place, or there has to be fundamentally new innovation. So, I mean, that's really the points I had to make. I just wanted to keep a couple of minutes for questions, and then I'll basically wrap up. So if there are any questions, please can somebody help with the microphone. So just to summarize, growth is happening. The youth will create homogeneity of demand, but that will take 5 to 7 years. And if you want a big business, focus on, quote unquote, the middle class, which is like 5 to 10 lakh rupee income. And they will give you substantial volume on which you can build a premium portfolio. Otherwise, playing in the premium portfolio right now is like making a movie. It's a little bit of a hit and miss. Very difficult to say why it worked and why it didn't work. Okay. Yeah, DC, please.
Hi, that's a great presentation. My question is very interesting data that the contribution of the large companies coming down, and you said smaller companies are launching new products faster. So in your study, that's India's data, right? But you said eventually they'll catch up. So what is the learning in the, when you say catch up means you've studied other countries' data as well. So what is it that, why are the large companies slower in innovation and new product launches, or why is it the smaller companies get it, or is it more risk-taking ability? So why is this trend happening? Why the companies which are large and have the scale to launch more and absorb the cost of a launch in a larger P&L, why don't they do it? And in fact, I'm agreeing with you because we at Big Bazaar Easy Day also have all this data.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, DC. I mean, I can offer a view. Maybe it'll be useful. The reason why that change, at least we observe, happens is the youth bring in a homogenization of the palate, and that palate typically is more towards processed food. Noodles, ready to eat, ready to cook. Every staple which is at the third level of processing, whether it's rice, whether it's wheat, sugar, and so on and so forth. Greater processing results in the need for greater technology, and that's where the bigger company with their capital and technology get into the fray. But regionalization, which is about taste and culture and some bit of our memories from our childhood, that bit they're somehow at a micro segment level. So in Calcutta, where I come from, there's something called Papi Chanachur. Even today, like a KFC uncle, there is this man who's nobody's ever seen in his life. He's there, and like it's a rock solid brand. Very difficult to say why it's surviving. It actually, maybe I shouldn't say in a public forum, but nobody knows what the quality standards are and other standards are. You've seen how food is manufactured in India. But those things will slowly go away when the technology part and the homogenization of the palate becomes more critical, and that's where the big national plays will come in. That's a way to look at it. But conceptually, it's difficult to say why micro segments can't be tapped. Technically, that should be possible. But maybe food is a little more complicated that way. Maybe. I mean. Any other questions for such a crystal clear presentation? Any question from your side? Okay, great. I will wrap it up. We are on time for the next presentation. Mohua, are you around? Maybe she's not. But thank you. If you have any questions, you can catch me, and I will put up this presentation on the website in case you all are interested. Yeah. Thank you.